Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk now. Recently, of course, we saw this big, huge, massive crypto crash. But if anything, it's recognizing what is the good news, right? Also, that's been happening, for instance, with the likes of Quant. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick things into today's coverage on Quant. And of course, we will definitely get into some of the things that have been happening with this crash, and especially with what Gilbert has to say in regards to this big crash. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with this right here. I definitely want to, of course, show you this before we get into today's hot topic of some of the good news, I should say, in regards to Quant. But again, we need to, of course, recognize what's going on with the overall crypto market cap. At the time of making this video, of course, this could go further down, but at the time of making this video, the overall crypto market cap is like what you see right here, 851.75 billion. A big, massive crash has been going on for the last couple days. And it's just that, look at that. I did see on Watcher Guru that Bitcoin for the first time since 2020 has crashed below 17K. Even Ethereum is well below that 1200 mark. You got to keep in mind, for the longest time, both of these represented 81% of the overall crypto market cap. With that also said, I want to show you guys this because earlier today, I basically decided to buy another Quant. I got this at 120, and it's kind of funny to see this actually at 121. But nonetheless, it was just that I feel as though even with all these big crashes, I feel as though that we're eventually going to be priced out of Quant. You do see that the volume is way up, 135% up, which is at 201,360,000 and so on. Another thing, to me that really stands out with Quant is just that more appealing circulating supply. Look at that right there. 12,072,738 Quant with a max and total supply of 14.612 million. It's just that. Think of all the times, unless you're, of course, a person that's completely new to crypto. And by the way, if you are, welcome, of course, to this. You may think, what in the world is going on? If anything, if you are that person, you came into a time which is a lot better than, let's face it, a lot of other people who bought for a lot more. But what I was going to state is, Quant, yes, you heard a lot of content creators say in the past, this particular project is the next Bitcoin, and they weren't. I'm stating full-heartedly, Quant definitely is the quote-unquote next Bitcoin. But if anything, I don't even think it deserves that label. Quant, if anything, should be labeled as, if it is going to have the Bitcoin label, the Bitcoin with utility, because it's just that. And then another thing I want to point out, and that is this, just real quick. For people who basically have been flooding this, I've seen some FUD, believe it or not, like on Twitter. Let's face it, a lot of projects get flooded. I think Quant is more than just a project. I think it's like a solid product. They have it's an operating system. So I just want to let people know that, yeah, you may see this and you think, it's ERC20 token. I'm going to stay away from that. It's so much more than that. I look at Quant as kind of like what Rich of Common Sense Crypto has mentioned. Shout out, of course, to him and his channel. He does great coverage, by the way. If you haven't looked into it, I would highly recommend looking into his content. But that's beside the point. But he did point out this particular thing, and I full-heartedly am with him on this statement. And that is, with Quant, it's so much more than just investing in, for instance, a ERC20 token. You're investing into an operating system, right? With what is referred to as the overledger. And I think that's the key takeaway, and how that basically interconnects basically everything when it comes to the payment APIs, what's going on with the financial sector, you name it, right? The enterprise system, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that investing in an operating system, especially for blockchain. A little bit more I want to get into, and that is the main headline that you saw in the thumbnail. This comes straight from Greg Lunt. So if you happen to be watching this, thank you, sir, for this good coverage. He came out with some of this good news, right? We're in this crash. A lot of people feel as though it's bad news. This is some good news for a change. So it states, and this is a big, huge catalyst for the likes of Quant. Official documents from Oracle reveal Quant will be integrated across 10, I repeat, 10 multi-trillion-dollar sectors. Quant, who's partnered, of course, with Oracle, produced a slide deck revealing the scope of their enterprise blockchain platform, which, of course, relies on Quant's overledger for interoperability. And like you see right here, it says interconnect and automate your organization's ecosystem, right? One of the key takeaways in regards to that. I, of course, looked more further into this. And when I went there, you may want to do this as well. It's going to open up a 24-page PDF. And when you get further into it, you're going to notice it's actually more than just 10, like it's outlined right here. I counted about roughly 13. And if anything, people want to focus on the retail side of things. And don't get me wrong, it does mention some of the retail side of things. But as far as that mass adoption, my attitude is this. We get to that mainly due to what you see in the financial sector and so on, where trillions of dollars, like we outlined before in recorded videos or on the live show, you name it, that is what gets us to these crazy market caps. People don't realize that. It's taking on, for instance, the debt. It's taking on, for instance, transferring huge amounts of money. As the saying goes with Quant, let's face it, that's one of the slogans, cross-border payments. We outlined, of course, was it a few videos back, Quant in itself, in 2 hours' time, can transfer the entire market cap of Bitcoin in just a couple hours. Think about the scale of when this is all fully implemented with ISO 222. You're new to this, please, by all means, look more into that. To me, in my humble opinion, again, it's not official financial advice, but that is where we get the monumental generational wealth, is through the likes of Quant and some of these other ones. It simply makes sense because of the technology that's backed by it. Now, in reference to the beginning of the video, we mentioned about what's going on with the big, let's face it, crypto market crash. You're going to hear in this 1.5-minute video, and again, shout out to you, Quant Papa, if you happen to be watching this. You're killing it on the Quant coverage. He's a Quant Maxi, and he's just got great clips, and I will continue, of course, to share some of this. But he states big companies emerge from a crash. Not Quant Papa mentioned this, of course, is Gilbert Verdian, the CEO of Quant, mentioning this. And if anything, I think it is just that. Think about how many times, like Gilbert mentions, that you have an innovative company that emerges from these huge crashes, whether it's through crypto, some of these other, times of history that we've seen. Of course, we're going to take a moment to hear this, and of course, we'll come right back for a little bit more in regards to today's Quant coverage. So here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been here before. The .com days had the same thing. You had all the hype and stuff, and everything .com got IPO'd, and people made lots of money from it, and then it completely crashed, right. And things died, right? And it was a good thing, because a lot of things that were not necessarily irrelevant, just became obsolete. But the things that stayed were the guys who put their heads down and built technology within the .com days. And if you look at what happened, Cisco did really well, Microsoft became huge, Apple happened, Amazon happened, Facebook happened. All those things are all because of that crash or the bear market of the .com era. And so we're doing the same thing now. So all the exponential hype stuff that was sensationalized, it stopped, which is a good thing. The regulators got involved, which is a great thing, because it really cleaned up the market quite a bit, and brought some stability and legitimacy back to the market, back to the technology. And now we're seeing really innovative stuff when things are slow and hard, and the real innovators are out there building stuff. And that's what happened with Apple. I mean, HP, you go back in the 70s, big companies evolved out of a crash, and the world changed because of that. So we're in that same situation now. So we're seeing a lot of the market cleaned up, and it's going to just grow exponentially, because That's
Right.
just the cycle of technology.
Well, if anything, I'm not trying to, of course, hype or anything like that, but if anything, you do want to hear a little bit of hope. I'm not trying to, give you guys hopium, like, let's face it, like some, ERC20 token or something that promises, future utility in a year if you invest in it and so on, right? But if anything, we do need to have some good news in regards to all the bad news that's been happening and so on. And if anything, here's the key thing I want to point out to you guys. On our live show, believe it or not, we pointed out on a two-part series. Um, you can basically look into it yourself, covering these 4-year cycles of coming out of, for instance, a crypto winter or a bear market, right? Going into the bull run. I feel full-heartedly that we're about to get into a bull run. I happen to be a subscriber, for instance, to Investor Place with Luke Lango and, for instance, Charlie Shrem. If you don't know who those guys are, for instance, Luke Lango, for instance, has a background. He used to work for the Los Angeles Dodgers for like data analytics, as well as the Philadelphia 76ers. Charlie Shrem, for instance, he's credited as being like one of the first, or if not the first, Bitcoin miners. He's in the Bitcoin all the way back like the $5 mark, way back. Like we're talking way back, right? Credited in being part of the Bitcoin Foundation Club. And, I would say 9 times out of 10, they've gotten it right when it comes to predictions, you name it. But one of the things that they definitely, I should say, Luke Lango pointed out was, for instance, these particular cycles. And heck, one of our own, right, from CTN, Legrand Commission, did a video, and of course we did mention this on the live, where he points out these 4-year cycles and how, if you look into it, right, all the way back from 2313 and so on, these 4-year cycles, how we're approaching as we speak the next bull run. May not seem like it because of all these huge crashes, but that's what it takes in order to get to that next step. I feel as though that the next bull run is going to happen in 2023. I mean, granted, crazy things could happen, like for instance, something crazy like, Russia-Ukraine war and all these crazy things happen and so on. But here's food for thought. If you look into it more, think about this. The bull run started happening, right, in a pandemic year, 2020, and going well into the end of 2021. Again, as the saying goes, when in doubt, zoom out. But if anything, part of getting into real solid, good projects and recognizing the market, especially if you're a seasoned veteran of investing in crypto, is to study what has happened in the past to prepare for the future, right? But again, I like what Gilbert basically mentioned, because if anything, let's face it, kind of solidifies some of the things that we mentioned. And then when I heard that from the likes of Luke Lango on that particular subscription service I'm part of, I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm going with that. I think personally we're going into a bull market coming up here soon. There's so many indicators to support some of those particular claims. And of course, I'm not being paid by the likes of Investor Place by any means, but I just thought it was a great service. All right, a little bit more in regards to this before we basically get out of this. And it's this one particular one right here. And I definitely want to point this out because in regards to what's happened with the recent crashes and so on. And that is this, all right? So there was this particular statement, right, that comes from this article, which is called Popular Blockchain Initiatives in Banking with Endotech. And basically it mentions, that, Quant, of course, was part of that mix. But check this out, for instance, all right? This particular statement right here states, this year we've seen many tier 1 banks rapidly accelerate their blockchain and distributed ledger technology, which is DLTs, their strategies. The strongest trend is within capital markets as financial institutions like custody banks actively tokenize assets like funds, equities, bonds, credit, mortgages, and real estate. BNY Mellon, State Street, and Northern Trust have taken steps forward in this area. one of the key things I want to mention is like what you also see down here. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to scroll so far down, but like where it mentions institutional demand from this particular quote from asset and fund managers and retail consumers is behind the shift towards asset tokenization. The benefits are substantial. Tokenization can transform securities, idle physical assets, and other instruments into new digital assets. These can then be fractionalized to transact seamlessly across borders. Like, of course, you're always hearing about, Quant's slogan of cross-border payments, right? Providing a better way to trade with improvements to reporting, transaction speed, and settlement. Now, one of the main things, of course, I want to also point out from this, besides what you just saw, is this whole concept of like, CBDCs, whether you're for them or not. But this statement, and of course, I jumped further down, but it's further up right here. It's just this what some of these assets are backed by. We're going to take a brief moment, of course, to just read this. And then, of course, I'm going to show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about to get more on, make the point here, I should say. It says in 2020, Barclays published an article about the value of smart contracts and the likelihood of future implementation. Their recent acquisition of Copper, listen to this, Copper, combined with their current testing of smart contract use cases, could certainly be seen as a sign of their intentions, along with other mainstream banks, to incorporate this type of blockchain technology into their offering. It must be said, however, that the adoption of blockchain technology within traditional finance is still fairly speculative in comparison, of course, to crypto, where we are seeing innovation at an exponential rate. Again, you heard Gilbert basically mention like how innovative companies and so on emerge from crashes. And of course, then you see this, for instance, it kind of all adds up, right? A little bit more in regards to, for instance, some of these digitalized assets being backed by the likes of precious metals. And I want to show you this for just a moment before, of course, we wrap up today's video. So the likes of Quant and so on, you think of like, for instance, the ISO 222 standards. So this particular lady, shout out to her, Linda P. Jones, she says, this is how ISO 222 cryptos would be backed with value like gold, silver, copper, palladium, etc., and used in the new financial system. I'm going to blow this up for you guys can see it a little bit better. But look at this, for instance, right? I think of how Quant is connected to all this because, like we mentioned before, you're not just investing in a token, you're literally investing into an operating system. And an operating system, the software behind it, basically interconnect all of this, right? And without telling the likes of Ripple or Stellar or Zinfin's XDC, Algorand, IOTA, you name it, that we need you to have your developers change things on your blockchain to be compatible with us. No. The benefit is they already recognize, and if anything, have already reached out. Some of them, right? We saw an example in a previous video. Some of them have even reached out to the likes of Gilbert Verdi and his team and said, we already know what you can do. Like, and then they came back, they as in Quant, and said, yeah, no problem. We're going to have it so we're compatible with you, right? We're interoperable with you. And so, if anything, a key takeaway I want you to see is this. You may have already seen this on other content creators' channels and so on, but it's just that, right? You see, for instance, Ripple's XRP is, for instance, backed by gold, right? For instance, some of these other precious metals, right? Stellar, backed by silver. Zinfin's XDC, backed by, for instance, copper. You get the gist, algo, so on and so forth. Here's the thing that I want to explain before we wrap up today's video, and that is this. You've heard, especially if you've been in the likes of crypto for a while, you've heard this overused expression that, for instance, Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. I think that's so incorrect. I think, if anything, Bitcoin and those particular ones are not a hedge against inflation. Crypto, in general, should be a hedge against what? Money printing. Think about that in itself. So, if you think about like when the United States got off of the gold standard, and for instance, which was back, of course, in 1971, right? Nixon basically mentions, you know, we had to get off of the gold standard and so on because let's face it, those reserves were being, depleted, and it was a recipe for disaster. You got to still have your gold reserves. If more is going out than what's coming in, you have to create a new mechanism. And if anything, um, that of course was ended and whatnot. And then it created an era of, let's face it, 50 plus years of just money printing, right? Constantly over and over, not backed by anything. And if anything, it was just like this endless cycle, creating more and more debt. So to see this, in my humble opinion, just solidifies even that much more the need for these to be backed by certain precious metals, whereas gold, silver, copper, you name it, right? Again, not a hedge against inflation, a hedge against money printing, because now with all of this that's going on, going into the new era, if you will, with finance and so on, you now see this come full circle of the ones that are being backed by a physical asset or a precious metal, gold, silver, copper, you name it. So with that said, guys, I want to wrap up today's video in regards to Quant. I felt as though that, yeah, this was a little bit longer than some of our other videos and so on, but my key takeaway was I'm really excited to see about where we're going here soon. Let's face it, this crash may, of course, last weeks on end and so on. It may feel as though like we're never going to get there. A bear market doesn't happen forever. So if anything, thanks again for watching today's video on Quant. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. And also, please hit that bell notification, or you can be tuned in or get alerts about new videos, whether it's the likes of Quant, XDC, and some of the other ones that we cover here, Luna Classic even, right? Some of the non-ISOs. But if anything, if you happen to be into a live show, you can get that alert, maybe tune in and hear some great crypto coverage. And y'all have a blessed day, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.